Hi guys, let's do the 37th Vision IAS UPSC Prelims 2020 test series. Now let's start. The first question is in ancient India, Taxila was a famous place of learning due to its teachers' expertise. Which of the following famous scholars were said to have studied or conducted research at the Taxila University? So the first one is Panini, second is Kautilya, third is Aryabhata. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is B. So the correct answer is B, that is 1 and 2, that is Panini and Kautilya. So Taxila became famous as a place of learning due to its teachers' expertise. Students came to Taxila from Kashi, Koshala, Magadha, and also from other countries in spite of the long and arduous journey they had to undertake. Taxila's famous researchers and students include Panini, the great grammarian of Sanskrit, to whom Professor Noam Chomsky of MIT attributes the origin of linguistics. Then we have Kautilya, also known as Chanakya, kingmaker, astute, political advisor, and author of Arthasastra, 3300 BCE. Deemed by social and economic historian Max Weber as one of the greatest political statecraft books of the ancient world. Then we have Charaka, the distinguished physician whose research on the region's flora and fauna described in his Charaka Samhita strengthened the development of Ayurveda. And we have Jivaka, the great physician to Gautama Buddha and his followers. Aryabhatta studied at the University of Nalanda. So he didn't study in Taxila, but he studied in Nalanda. Hence, only options 1 and 2 are correct. Now, let's come to question number 2. In the context of medieval India, arrange the following events in the chronological order of their occurrences. Number 1, Shahjahan's ascension to the Mughal throne. Number 2, foundation of the first Dutch factory in Masuli Patam. Number 3, the occurrence of the Battle of Banihati or Thalikota. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is B. The correct answer is B, that is 3 first happened. The occurrence of the Battle of Thalikota. Then number 2 we have the foundation of the first Dutch factory in Masulipatam. Then we have Shahjahan's ascension to the Mughal throne. Okay, so Shahjahan was considered the most competent of Emperor Jahangir's 4 sons. He put to death all of his rivals for the throne and crowned himself emperor in January 1628 in Agra under the regnal title Shahjahan, which was originally given to him as a princely title. In 1602, the United East India Company of the Netherlands was formed and given permission by the Dutch government to trade in the East Indies, including India. The Dutch founded their first factory in Masulipatam in Andhra Pradesh in 1605. The Battle of Talikota or Banihati 1565 was a decisive battle in the history of the Vijayanagara Empire. The battle was fought in a range of 40 kilometers. This battle was fought between the villages of Rakasagi and Tangadagi. So it was fought between the villages of Rakasagi and Tangadagi near Thalikota. Hence it was called the Battle of Thalikota or Rakasa Tangadi. Some scholars believe that the decisive battle was fought at Krishna Banihati, hence it is also called the Battle of Banihati. Alia Ramaraya was the leader of the Vijayanagara troops. On the opposite side was the coalition army of Shahi Sultans of Deccan. This grand army comprised of the troops Adil Shahis of Bijapur, Nizam Shahis of Ahmednagar, Qutub Shahis of Golconda, and Barid Shahis of Bidar. So, option B is the correct answer. Now, let's come to question number 3. Which of the following statements is or are correct regarding the liquidity trap? Number 1. It is a situation in which monetary policy becomes ineffective to spur demand for goods and services. Number 2. It often leads to a deflationary spiral where people delay spending options. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is C. That is both 1 and 2. So the option is C, both 1 and 2. So liquidity trap is a situation in which monetary policy becomes ineffective to spur demand for goods and services. And it often leads to a deflationary spiral where people delay spending options. So the concept of liquidity trap was first developed by economist J.M. Hicks in 1937 as an economic condition first observed after the Great Depression of the 1930s. In a standard economy, a reduction in interest rates encourages both borrowing and spending levels on part of both producers and consumers, and this leads to an improvement in the aggregate demand levels of an economy, thereby leading to a corresponding rise in the GDP of the country. However, an expansionary monetary policy through lowering borrowing rates are ineffective when the interest rates are already close to zero, as any further reduction has no effect on the borrowing patterns of individuals. Due to prevailing depressed demand and production levels, individuals prefer to hoard capital rather than investing. This situation is known as the liquidity trap, and the expansionary monetary policy increase in the money supply of central bank becomes ineffective to boost economic growth. The liquidity trap is the inability of a central bank to stimulate economic growth through interest rate cuts. Hence, statement 1 is correct. If low interest rates can't stimulate people to spend enough to keep the workforce at full employment, the risk is that a liquidity trap will set off a deflationary spiral in which prices fall, causing people to delay spending, which makes prices fall even more, and so on. Hence, statement 2 is correct. Starting in the 1990s, Japan faced a liquidity trap. Interest rates continued to fall, and yet there was a little incentive in buying investments. Japan faced deflation. So, Japan faced deflation through the 1990s, and of 2019 still has a negative interest rate of minus 0.1%. Now let's come to the next question, that is question number 4. Consider the following statements with reference to the election of the members and chairpersons of the Panchayat. Number 1. All the members of Panchayats at the village, intermediate and district levels are elected directly by the people. The chairperson of a panchayat at the village level is elected directly by the people. Number 3. The chairperson of panchayats at the district level is elected indirectly by and from amongst its elected members. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? So the correct answer is D. That is 1 and 3. So 1 and 3. So the answer is D, that is 1 and 3. All the members of panchayats at the village, intermediate and district levels are elected directly by the people. Number 3. The chairperson of panchayats at a district level is elected indirectly by and from amongst its elected members. So, composition of panchayats is provided under Article 243C of the Constitution. All the members of panchayats at the village, intermediate and district levels shall be elected directly by the people. Hence, statement 1 is correct. The chairperson of a panchayat at the village level shall be elected in such manner as the state legislature determines. Hence, statement 2 is not correct. Further, the chairperson of panchayats at the intermediate and district level shall be elected indirectly by and from amongst the elected members thereof. Hence, statement 3 is correct. Now let's come to the next question, that is question number 5. In the context of ecology, which of the following correctly describes the term species guilds? Number A. It is a group of species sharing a similar functional role. Number B. It is a group of species that compete for similar resources. Number C. It is a group of species sharing a mutualistic association. Number D. It is a group of species sharing common ancestry. So the answer is B. Answer is B. That is, it is a group of species that compete for similar resources. So a guild or ecological guild is any group of species that exploit the same resources or that exploit different resources in related ways. Hence, option B is the correct answer. Guilds are defined according to the locations, attributes, or activities of their component species. For example, the mode of acquiring nutrients, the mobility, and the habitat zones that a species occupy or exploit can be used to define a guild. The number of guilds occupying an ecosystem is termed its disparity. It is not necessary that the species within a guild occupy the same or even similar ecological niches, and eco which is the role and organism plays in its community, that is decomposer, primary producer, etc. Members of a guild within a given ecosystem could be competing for resources such as space or light, while cooperating in resisting wind stresses, attracting pollinators, or detecting predators, such as happens among savanna dwelling antelope and zebra. A guild does not typically have strict or even clearly defined boundaries, nor does it need to be taxonomically cohesive. A broadly defined guild will almost always have constituent guilds. For example, grazing guilds will have some species that concentrate on coarse, plentiful forage, while others concentrate on low growing, finer plants. Each of those two sub-guilds may be regarded as guilds in appropriate context, and they might in turn have sub-guilds in more closely selective context. Now let's come to question number 6. A person residing at a place located at 50° north will never witness which of the following? Number 1, overhead midday sun. Number 2, darkness for 6 months. Number 3, marked changes in seasons. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is A. That is 1 and 2 only. So overhead midday sun and darkness for 6 months. Due to Earth's inclined axis, the sun is vertically overhead at the equator or on 2 days every year. So due to the Earth's inclined axis, the sun is vertically overhead at equator on 2 days every year. These are usually March 21st or September 21st. These 2 days are termed as equinoxes, that is equal night and day. On June 21st, the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun. The rays of the sun fall directly on the Tropic of Cancer. Any latitude north of that does not experience overhead midday sun. Hence, option 1 is correct. As a consequence, those areas receive extra heat. The areas near the poles get less heat, as the rays of the sun are slanting. The longest day of the year arrives when the sun is directly over the Tropic of Cancer. To be more specific, right over the 23.5° north latitude, that is Tropic of Cancer. It is the day when the northern hemisphere receives maximum sunlight. The southern hemisphere receives more sunlight on December 21, 22, or 23. The winter solstice, Hamel solstice, or hibernal solstice, also known as midwinter, occurs when one of the Earth's poles has its maximum tilt away from the sun. It happens twice yearly, once in each hemisphere. The places on Earth that have 6 months of daylight and 6 months of darkness are the places closer to the North Pole and the South Pole. Countries near the poles within the Arctic Circle, that is 66.5° north, have 6 months of night and 6 months of day, because the Earth tilts on its axis with the poles pointing towards and away from the sun. The Arctic Circle marks the southern extremity of the polar day. 24-hour sunlit day, often referred to as the midnight sun, and polar night, 24-hour sunless night. Therefore, a place located at 50° north will not experience darkness for 6 months. However, it will experience marked change in the seasons owing to its high latitude. Hence, option 2 is correct and option 3 is not correct. Now, let's come to the next question, that is question number 7. Which of the following famous items native to Kashmir has or have been granted geographical indication, that is the GI status? Number 1, Kashmir saffron. Number 2, Kashmir walnut wood carving. Number 3, Kashmir tea. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is A. So the correct answer is A, that is 1 and 2 only. That is Kashmir saffron and Kashmir walnut wood carving. Recently, the Kashmir saffron, Lacha saffron, Mongra saffron, and Gucci saffron has been granted the geographical indication GI status. Saffron has been associated with traditional Kashmiri cuisine and represents the rich cultural heritage of the region. It is a very precious and costly product and is cultivated and harvested in the Karewa highlands of Kashmir, of Jammu and Kashmir. Kashmiri saffrons have a strong aroma and are the only varieties of saffron grown at a high altitude. Hence, option 1 is correct. Other items from Kashmir which have been granted GI, that is geographical indication status, are number 1, Kani Sol. Number 2, Kashmir walnut wood carving. Hence, option 2 is correct. Number 3, Kashmir papayar mache. So it's Kashmir papayar macha. Then we have number 4, Pasmina. So Kashmir tea or noon chai or pink tea, although quite famous, is yet to receive geographic indication status. Hence, option 3 is not correct. Now let's come to the next question, that is question number 8. Consider the following statements with respect to the fifth state of matter. Number 1. It was predicted by the combined works of Einstein and Satyendra Nath Bose. Number 2. It is formed when a gas is warmed to extremely high temperatures. Number 3. In this state, the clusters of atoms begin functioning as a single quantum object with both wave and particle properties. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? So the correct answer is C. That is 1 and 3. It was predicted by the combined works of Einstein and Satyendra Nath Bose, and in this state, the clusters of atoms begin functioning as a single quantum object with both wave and particle properties. Recently, scientists on board International Space Station conducted Bose-Einstein condensate (BEC) experiments and have observed the fifth state of matter in space for the first time. In physics, a state of matter is one of the distinct features in which matter can exist. 4 states of matter are observable in everyday life. Number 1, solid. Number 2, liquid. Number 3, gas. And number 4, plasma. A Bose-Einstein condensate, that is BEC, is a state of matter also called the fifth state of matter, and it exists under extreme conditions. The existence of Bose-Einstein condensates (BECs) was first predicted generally in 1924 to 1925 by Albert Einstein, following and crediting a pioneering paper by Satyendranath Bose on the new field now known as quantum statistics. Hence, statement 1 is correct. BECs are formed by cooling a gas of extremely low density, about 100,000. So, it is going to be put under extremely low density by cooling gas of extremely low density, about 100,000. The density of normal air. So it's going to be 100,000, the density of normal air, to ultra low temperatures, that is near absolute zero, that is 0 Kelvin or minus 273.5 degrees Celsius. Hence, statement 2 is not correct. At this point, the atoms become a single entity with quantum properties, wherein each particle also functions as a wave of matter. BECs straddle the line between the macroscopic world governed by forces such as gravity and the microscopic plane ruled by quantum mechanics. Hence, statement 3 is correct. Scientists believe BECs contain vital clues to mysterious phenomena such as dark energy, the unknown energy thought to be behind the universe accelerating expansion. But BECs are extremely fragile. The slightest interaction with the external world is enough to warm them past their condensation threshold. Now let's come to the next question, that is question number 9. In the context of the Mauryan Empire, which of the following observations were made by Megasthenes in his account Indica? Number 1. The king's palace is made of wood and decorated with stone carvings. Number 2. The occasions on which the emperor appears in public are celebrated with grand royal processions. Number 3. The king is normally surrounded by armed women. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is D. That is all 1, 2 and 3 are correct. So the king's palace is made of wood and decorated with stone carvings. The occasions on which the emperor appears in public are celebrated with grand royal processions. Number 3. The king is normally surrounded by armed women. Megasthenes was an ambassador who was sent to the court of Chandragupta, the Mauryan emperor, by the Greek ruler of West Asia named Seleucus Nicator. Megasthenes wrote an account about what he saw in India in his book called Indica. Here is a part of his description. The occasions on which the emperor appears in public are celebrated with grand royal processions. He is carried in a golden palanquin. His guards ride elephants decorated with gold and silver. Some of the guards carry trees on which live birds, including a flock of trained parrots, circle about the head of the emperor. The king is normally surrounded by armed women. He is afraid that someone may try to kill him. He has special servants to test the food before he eats. He never sleeps in the same bedroom for 2 nights. And about Patliputra, modern Patna, he wrote, "This is a large and beautiful city. It is surrounded by a massive wall. It has 570 towers and 64 gates. The houses of 2 and 3 stories are built of wood and mud brick. The king's palace is also of wood and decorated with stone carvings. It is surrounded with gardens and enclosures for keeping birds." Hence, all the statements are correct. Now, let's come to the next question, that is question number 10. Which of the following powers is or are conferred by the Indian Forest Act 1927 on Government of India? Number 1. The power to impose a duty on timber and other forest produce. Number 2. To lay down standards for utilizing funds raised in lieu of diversion of forest land. Number 3. To lay down guidelines for establishing national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is C. That is 1 only. The power to impose a duty on timber and other forest produce. The Indian Forest Act 1927. So the Indian Forest Act was largely based on previous Indian Forest Acts implemented under the British. The most famous one was the Indian Forest Act of 1878. Both the 1878 Act and the 1927 was sought to consolidate and conserve the areas having forest cover or significant wildlife, to regulate movement and transit of forest produce, and the duty leviable on timber. So, a duty leviable on timber and other forest produce. It seeks to consolidate and reserve the areas having forest cover or significant wildlife, to regulate movement and transit of forest produce, and duty leviable on timber and other forest produce. So statement 1 is correct. It defines the procedure to be followed for declaring an area to be a reserved forest, a protected forest, and a village forest. It defines what is a forest offense, what are the acts prohibited inside a reserved forest, and penalties leviable on violation of the provisions of the Act. Compensatory Afforestation Fund Act 2016 provide an appropriate institutional mechanism both at the center and in each state and union territory to ensure expeditious utilization in an efficient and transparent manner of amounts released in lieu of forest land diverted for non-forest purpose, which would mitigate the impact of diversion of such forest land. Hence, option 2 is not correct. Guidelines for establishing national parks and wildlife sanctuaries are laid down under Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Hence, option 3 is not correct. Now let's come to the next question, that is question number 11. Consider the following statements regarding the Environmental Performance Index, that is EPI. Number 1. It is published by the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP. Number 2. It comes out every year, indicating which countries are best addressing the environmental challenges. So, it comes out every year, indicating which countries are best addressing the environmental challenges. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? So the correct answer is D. That is, neither 1 nor 2. India secured 168th rank in the 12th edition of the biennial, so it is biennial Environment Performance Index, EPI Index 2020. So statement 2 is wrong. And this EPI measures the environmental performance of 180 countries and was released by the Yale University in June 2020. So number 1 is statement 1 is also wrong. India's rank was 177 with a score of 30.557 out of 100 in 2018. The country scored 27.6 out of 100 in the 2020 index. The global index considered 32 indicators of environmental performance, giving a snapshot of the 10-year trends in environmental performance at the national and global levels. Overall EPI rankings indicate which countries are best addressing the environmental challenges that every nation faces. This biennial index has been developed by Yale University and Columbia University in collaboration with the World Economic Forum and the Joint Research Centre of the European Commission. So it's not published by UNEP. So both the statements are wrong. Now let's come to the next question, that is question number 12. Which of the following is or are the likely impacts of falling global crude oil prices on the Indian economy? Number 1, widening of the current account deficit. Number 2, fall in core inflation. So fall in core inflation. Number 3, fall in sugar prices. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is C. That is 3 only. Fall in sugar prices. Historically, the condition of the Indian economy has been greatly influenced by oil prices. In the past, a rapid rise in oil prices has precipitated an economic crisis. India imports nearly 82% of its oil. A fall in prices could give its frailing economy some breathing space. A fall in crude oil lowers both the trade deficit and in turn the current account deficit, since India largely relies on imports for its oil demand. So when the crude oil prices are falling, the current account deficit is most likely to reduce or shrink. Hence option 1 is not correct. Consumer price inflation and wholesale price inflation see a direct impact on crude oil prices. Oil is a very important commodity and it is required to meet domestic fuel needs. An increase in the price of crude oil means that it would increase the cost of producing goods. This price rise would finally be passed on to consumers, resulting in inflation. However, the core inflation rate is the price change of goods and services minus food and energy. So therefore, the fall in global crude prices would not affect the core inflation rate. Hence option 2 is not correct. When oil prices are high, sugar mills tend to divert cane for making ethanol, alcohol of 99% plus purity, that is used for blending with petrol. So sugar mills tend to divert cane for making ethanol that is used for blending with petrol. But with oil prices tanking, mills will not find it attractive to divert cane for ethanol. Lower oil prices could lead to excess supply or availability of sugar in the international market. With exports slowing down, this could result in lower sugar prices in India. Hence, option 3 is correct. Now let's come to the next question, that is question number 13. Question number 13. Consider the following pairs: reason in news and the state or union territories it belongs to. The first one is Daulat Bag Oldi, Ladakh. Number 2, Debsang Plain, Himachal Pradesh. Number 3, Namti Maidan, Sikkim. Which of the pairs given above is or are correctly matched? So the correct answer is A. That is one only. Daulat Bag Oldi, OBD, is the northernmost corner of Indian territory in Ladakh, in the area better known as army parlance as Sub-Sector North. It has the world's highest airstrip. This airstrip was originally built during the 1962 war. It was abandoned until 2008 when the Indian Air Force IAF revived it as one of its many advanced landing grounds ALGs along the LAC. Recently, the Chinese built up along the Galwan River Valley region overlooks and hence poses a direct threat to the Darbuk Shok Daulat Bag Oldi DSDBO road. Hence, pair 1 is correctly matched. The Debsang Plains are located at the line of actual control that separates the Indian and Chinese controlled regions. The Chinese army occupied most of the plains in 1962. India controls the western portion of the plains as part of Ladakh, whereas the eastern portion is part of the Aksai Chin region, which is controlled by China and claimed by India. Hence, pair 2 is not correctly matched. Namti Maidan is placed 7 kilometers away from Walong in Arunachal Pradesh. The fierce battle of 1962 was fought here by the Indian forces against Chinese aggression into the valley. A sombre war memorial stands in honor of the sacrifices of brave Indian soldiers. Hence, statement 3 is not correctly matched. So, Namti Maidan, it should be Arunachal Pradesh and not Sikkim. Now let's come to the next question, that is question number 14. In the context of the new religious movement during the second half of the first millennium, who among the following was not a Nayanar, that is saints devoted to Shiva? Number 1, Andal. Number 2, Appar. Number 3, Manikava Sagar. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is B. The correct answer is B. That is one only. That is Andal. The 7th to 9th centuries saw the emergence of new religious movements led by the Nayanars, that is saints devoted to Shiva, and Alvars, saints devoted to Vishnu, who came from all castes including those considered untouchable like the Pulayar and the Panars. They were sharply critical of the Buddhists and Jainas and preached ardent love of Shiva or Vishnu as the path to salvation. They drew upon the ideals of love and heroism as found in the Sangam literature. The earliest example of Tamil literature composed during the early centuries of the Common Era and blended them with the values of bhakti. The Nayanars and Alvars went from place to place composing exquisite poems in praise of the deity, in praise of the deities enshrined in the villages they visited and set them to music. There were 63 Nayanars who belonged to different caste backgrounds such as potters, untouchable workers, peasants, hunters, soldiers, brahmanas, and chiefs. The best known among them were Appar, Sambandar, Sundarar, and Manikava Sagar. There are two sets of compilations of their songs, Devaram and Tiruvachakam. Tiruvakakam. So there are two sets of compilations of songs, that is Devaram and Tiruvakakam. There were 12 Alvars who came from equally divergent backgrounds, the best known being Periyalvar, his daughter Andal, Tondaradipodi Alvar, and Namalvar. Their songs were compiled in the Divya Prabandham. The importance of the traditions of the Alvars and Nayanars was sometimes indicated by the claims that their compositions were as important as the Vedas. For instance, one of the major anthologies of compositions of the Alvars, the Nalayira Devya Prabadham, was frequently described as the Tamil Veda, thus claiming that the text was as significant as the four Vedas in Sanskrit that was cherished by the Brahmanas. Hence, option B is the correct answer. Now let's come to the next question, that is question number 15. This semi-nomadic tribal community is found in Ladakh. They are known for rearing the goats that yield the rare Pasmina fiber or Kashmir wool. The recent tensions between India and China have left this community cut off from large parts of the summer pastures. Which of the following communities is being described in by the above passage? Number A, Changpa tribe. Number B, Gaddi tribe. Number C, Drokpa tribe. Number D, Purikpa tribe. So the correct answer is A, that is Changpa tribe. The total tribal population in Ladakh region is more than 97%. The region is inhabited by following scheduled tribes, namely Balti, Beda, Bot, Bodo, Brokpa, Drokpa, Dram, Dard. Okay, so the first one is Balti, second is Beda, third is Bot, fourth is Bodo, fifth is Brokpa, then sixth is Drokpa, then the seventh is Dart, eighth is Sin, then ninth is Changpa, etc. Recently, the Chinese army's intrusion in Chumur and Damchok since January has left Ladakh's nomadic herding Changpa community cut off from large parts of summer pastures. The People's Liberation Army, China, has taken over 16 canals, 2 acres of cultivable land in Chumur and advanced around 15 km inside Damchok, taking over traditional grazing pastures and cultivable lowlands. This has destabilized the movement of over 2,000 members of the nomadic community. In a cascading effect, this has resulted in a sharp rise in deaths of young Pasmina goats this year in the Korjok-Jumur belt of Changthang Plateau in Ladakh. The Changpas rear the highly pedigreed and prized Changra goats, Chapra hircus, that yield the rare Pasmina fiber, that is Kashmir wool. The Kashmir goats, Changra goats, are not raised for their meat but for their fiber. The Pashmina fiber is one of the finest fiber of all goat hair. Changthangi or Pasmina goat is a breed of goat inhabiting the plateaus in Tibet and neighboring areas of Ladakh in Jammu and Kashmir in India. The wool comes from four distinct breeds of the Kashmir goat, namely the Changthangi or Kashmir Pasmina goat from the Changthang Plateau in Kashmir region, the Malra from Kargil area in Kashmir region, the Chegu from Himachal Pradesh in northern India, and Jangara or Nepalese Pashmina goat. So Jangara or Nepalese Pasmina goat from Nepal. Now let's come to the next question, that is question number 16. Consider the following statements with reference to the Agricultural and Processed Food Products Export Development Authority, APEDA. Number 1. It is an autonomous body under the administrative control of the Ministry of Food Processing Industries. Number 2. It is mandated with the responsibility of export promotion of agricultural and processed food products by providing financial assistance to the registered exporters. Number 3, it has been entrusted with the responsibility to monitor the import of sugar. Which of the statements given above are correct? So, the correct answer is B. The correct answer is B, that is 2 and 3. It is mandated with the responsibility of export promotion of agricultural and processed food products by providing financial assistance to the registered exporters. Number 3, it has been entrusted with the responsibility to monitor the import of sugar. The Agricultural and Processed Food Products Export Development Authority, APEDA, was established by the Government of India under the Agricultural and Processed Food Products Export Development Authority Act 1985. It is an autonomous body under the administrative control of the Department of Commerce, Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Hence, statement 1 is not correct. According to the provision of APEDA Act, the following functions have been assigned to the authority: development of industries relating to the scheduled products for export by way of providing financial assistance or otherwise for undertaking surveys and feasibility studies, participation in enquiry, capital through joint ventures and other reliefs and subsidy schemes. Hence, statement 2 is correct. Registration of persons as exporters of the scheduled products on payment of such fees as may be prescribed. Fixing of standards and specifications for the scheduled products for the purpose of exports. carrying out inspection of meat and meat products in slaughterhouses, processing plants, storage premises, conveyances, or other places where such products are kept or handled for the purpose of ensuring the quality of such products. Improving the packaging of the scheduled products. Improving marketing of the scheduled products outside India. Promotion of export oriented production and development of the scheduled products. APEDA, APEDA has been entrusted with the responsibility of export promotion and development of 14 agricultural and processed food products groups listed in the schedule to the APEDA Act. The scheduled products include fruits, vegetables and their products, meat and meat products, poultry and poultry products, dairy products, confectionery, biscuits and bakery products, honey, jaggery and sugar products, cocoa and its products, chocolates of all kinds, alcohol, alcohol and non-alcoholic beverages, cereal and cereal products, groundnuts, peanuts and walnuts, pickles, papads and chutneys, guar gum, floriculture and floriculture products, herbal and medicinal plants. In addition to these, APEDA has been entrusted with the responsibility to monitor the import of sugar as well. Hence, statement 3 is correct. APEDA has been actively engaged in the development of markets besides the upgradation of infrastructure and quality to promote the export of agro products. In its endeavor to promote agro exports, APEDA, under its planned scheme titled Agriculture Export Promotion Scheme of APEDA, provides financial assistance to the registered exporters under sub-components of the scheme: market development, infrastructure development, quality development, and transport assistance. Question number 17. Which of the following motions is or are allowed in Rajya Sabha? Number 1, privilege motion. Number 2, adjournment motion. Number 3, motion to remove Supreme Court judge. Number 4, economy cut motion. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is D. D, that is 1 and 3 only. So privilege motion and motion to remove Supreme Court judge. Parliamentary privileges are certain rights and immunities enjoyed by members of Parliament individually and collectively so that they can effectively discharge their functions. When any of these rights and immunities are disregarded, the offense is called a breach of privilege and is punishable under the law of Parliament. Rules of Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha permit a member, with the consent of the Speaker or the Chairperson, can move privilege motion involving a breach of privilege either of a member or of the House or of a committee. The Speaker or Chair can decide on the privilege motion himself or herself or refer it to the Privileges Committee of Parliament. A judge of a Supreme Court can be removed from his office by and order of the President. The President can issue the removal order only after The President can issue the removal order only after an address by Parliament has been presented to him or her in the same session for the removal. The Judges Enquiry Act 1968 regulates the procedure relating to the removal of a judge of the Supreme Court by process of impeachment. A removal motion can be moved either in Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. Now let's come to adjournment motion. So adjournment motion is introduced in the parliament to draw the attention of the house to a definite matter of urgent public importance and needs the support of 50 members to be admitted. As it disrupts the normal business of the house, it is regarded as an extraordinary device. It involves an element of censor against the government, and hence Rajya Sabha is not permitted to make use of this device. In the light of the reports of the departmental standing committees, the Lok Sabha takes up voting of demands for grants. Members of Lok Sabha can also move motions to reduce any demand for a grant. Such motions are called the cut motion. Now let's come to economy cut motion. It represents the economy that can be affected in the proposed expenditure. It states that the amount of the demand be reduced by a specific amount. The voting of demands for grants is the exclusive privilege of the Lok Sabha. That is, the Rajya Sabha has no power of voting the demands and hence cannot move economy cut motion. Hence, option D is the correct answer. So, the correct answer is privilege motion and the motion to remove Supreme Court judge. Now, let's come to question number 18. The 15th Finance Commission recommended performance-based incentives to states for undertaking reforms in which of the following sectors? Number 1, implementation of agriculture reforms. Number 2, power sector reforms. Number 3, incentives for education. Number 4, enhancing trade including exports. Number 5, promotion of domestic and international tourism. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is D. D, that is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So all are correct. 15th Finance Commission, that is FC, proposes performance-based incentives to states based on reforms undertaken in 6 different areas. These broad contours are given below. Implementation of agriculture reforms. The states will be eligible for financial incentives if they enact and implement all features of number 1, model agricultural produce and livestock marketing, Promotion and Facilitation Act, issued by the Ministry of Agriculture, Cooperation and Farmers Welfare in 2017. Number 2, Model Agricultural Produce and Livestock Contract Farming and Services, Promotion and Facilitation Act, issued by the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare in 2018. And number 3, Model Agricultural Land Leasing Act 2016, prepared by the Niti Aayog. Development of aspirational districts and aspirational blocks. The Aspirational Districts Program ADP, piloted by Niti Aayog, is based on 3 principles of competition, convergence, and collaboration. On the basis of the performance evaluation of the ADP, that is Aspirational District Program, the Finance Commission FC recommends earmarking funds to incentivize the top performing districts to sustain these results and broaden their impact over our award period. Next is power sector reforms. The FC has recommended annual financial incentives for top performing states which achieve the targets based on certain broad parameters such as number 1, achieving the reduction targets of AT and C losses, number 2, achieving the reduction targets of AC, SARR, number 3, open access to trade and industry to meet their power needs from sources other than the state utilities. And number 4, to implement direct cash transfers for all consumers eligible for subsidy in a state. Now let's come to enhancing trade, including exports. Robust logistics, user-friendly institutions and regulatory framework and adequate finance are essential ingredients of a conducive ecosystem for promoting trade, including exports. The World Bank has the Logistic Performance Index and a and an index for measuring trading across borders. So the World Bank has the Logistic Performance Index and an index for measuring trading across borders. The Ministry of Commerce and Industry is preparing an index of logistics ease across different states as well as a trade preparedness index together with the Niti Aayog. The FC recommends performance-based incentive related to exports, including its design. We would also like to support export-related employment generating initiatives given its significance in enhancing the growth potential of states in terms of GSDP. Now let's come to incentives for education. In education, low ratio of girls transitioning from upper primary to the secondary level of education are areas of concern. Considering this, the Finance Commission recommended financial incentives for best performing states in terms of incremental change in a few focused indicators like the difference between transition rate of boys and girls rate from upper primary to secondary level, average mathematics score in class 8, government and aided schools, etc. Next is promotion of domestic and international tourism. The Finance Commission recommends allocations of funds for rewarding the states with highest percentage increase in the aggregate number of nights spent by international tourists in that state as one of the criteria. Hence, all the options are correct. Now let's come to the next question, that is question number 19. Which of the following correctly describes the term eco-anxiety? Number A, it is a nervous disorder caused due to rising environmental pollution. Number B, it refers to the fear of ecological disaster caused by environmental damage. Number C, it refers to psychological response to loss caused by environmental destruction. Number D, none of the above. So the correct answer is B. That is, it refers to the fear of ecological disaster caused by environmental damage. So eco-anxiety or climate anxiety, it refers to the chronic fear of environmental doom, or in other words, it is the feeling of being overwhelmed by the challenges of climate change and the fear about the state of the environment. It is not a medical condition in itself, but in certain individuals, it can exacerbate pre-existing mental health problems. Solastalgia. It describes a form of emotional or existential distress caused by environmental change. It is best described as the lived experience of negatively perceived environmental change. Ecological grief or climate grief. It can be described as a psychological response to loss caused by environmental destruction or climate change. It is the grief reaction stemming from the environmental loss of ecosystems by natural and man-made events. Now let's come to question number 20. With reference to carbon offsetting, consider the following statements. Number 1, it refers to the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions to generate carbon credits. Number 2, it can help raise funds for the protection of forests and supporting the local communities with alternative livelihood opportunities. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? So the correct answer is C. That is both 1 and 2. A carbon offset refers to the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions and results in the generation of carbon credit from a project with clear boundaries, title, project documents, and a verification plan. Hence, statement 1 is correct. A carbon credit is an instrument that carbon credit is an instrument that represents ownership of 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide. These credits can be traded, sold, retired, etc. Offsets are measured in tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. 1 ton of carbon offset represents the reduction of 1 ton of carbon dioxide or its equivalent in other greenhouse gases. When anyone purchases carbon credits, they are funding the reduction, elimination, or total avoidance of 1 ton of carbon. If anyone buy as many carbon credits equal to their carbon footprint, then they are considered to be carbon neutral or balancing your emissions with an equal amount of emissions reduction. When they are purchased by general revenue, this revenue could be used for projects and activities that protect or restore forest, often supporting local communities with alternative livelihood opportunities that keep trees standing, and it helps fund program to do so in perpetuity. So statement 2 is correct. Now let's come to question number 21. With reference to the International Labour Organization, consider the following statements. Number 1, it was created as part of the Treaty of Versailles after World War I. Number 2, it is the only organization of the UN having tripartite governing structure representing workers, employers, and government. Number 3, the World Employment and Social Outlook is one of its flagship reports. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? So the correct answer is C. So the correct answer is C, that is 1, 2, and 3. The International Labour Organization (ILO) was created in 1919, 100 years of formation in 1919, as part of the Treaty of Versailles that ended World War I, to reflect the belief that universal and lasting peace can be accomplished only if it is based on social justice. Hence, statement 1 is correct. It has a total of 187 member nations, including India, who is a founding member. In 1946, the ILO became a specialized agency of the newly formed United Nations. It is the only organization of the UN having tripartite governing structure representing workers, employers, and government. It sets labor standards, develops policies, and devises programs promoting decent work for all women and men. Hence, statement 2 is correct. India has ratified two key ILO conventions of child labor, the Minimum Age Convention number 138 and the Worst Forms of Child Labor Convention number 182. With the ratification of these two core ILO conventions, India has now ratified 6 out of 18 core ILO conventions. The other 4 core ILO conventions ratified by India are number 1, Forced Labor Convention number 29. Number 2, it would be Abolition of Forced Labor Convention number 105 relating to the abolition of forced labor. Number 3 is Equal Remuneration Convention, that is number 100. Fourth point is Discrimination, Employment and Occupation Convention relating to removing discrimination between men and women in employment and occupation. Two core ILO convention which are yet to be ratified by India are Freedom of Association and Protection of the Right to Organize Convention number 87 and Right to Organized and Collective Bargaining Convention number 98. Now let's come to flagship reports. Number 1, the World Employment and Social Outlook. WESO is the ILO's flagship report on the world of work issues, focusing on a different theme each year. It undertakes an evidence-based analysis of indicators and policies that achieve high employment and balanced incomes. It is published annually in January. Hence, statement 3 is correct. Next is Global Wage Report. Analysis. So the Global Wage Report analyzes the latest wage statistics and provides insights on wage policies based on research projects carried out by the ILO. The third report would be the World Social Protection Report. It takes a comprehensive look at how countries are investing in social security, how they are financing it, and how effective their approaches are. Now let's come to the next question, that is question number 22. With reference to Indian traditional art, which of the following is not a type of scroll painting? Number A, Pattachitra. Number B, Cherial paintings. Number C, Prasasti Patra. Number D, Warli paintings. So the correct answer is D. That is Warli paintings. So the popular types of scroll paintings are number 1, Pattachitra or Patta. Okay, so it's called Pattachitra. It's a general form of traditional cloth-based scroll painting based in the earlier Indian states of Orissa and West Bengal. Pattachitra art form is known for its intricate details as well as mythological narratives and folk tales inscribed in it. The second one is Cherial scroll painting. It is a stylized version of Nakashi art, rich in the local motifs peculiar to the Telangana. They are at present made only in Hyderabad, that is in Telangana in India. Next is Prasasti Patra. It is a sophisticated scroll painting tradition that developed in the Indian states of Maharashtra and Gujarat. Next is Warli art is a beautiful folk art of Maharashtra, traditionally created by the tribal women. Tribals are the Warli and Malkharkoli tribes found on the northern outskirts of Mumbai in western India. This art was first explored in the early 70s and from then it was named Warli art. Tribal people express themselves in vivid styles through paintings which they execute on the walls of their house. It is a type of wall painting. Hence, option D is the correct answer. So, option D, that is Warli paintings. Now let's come to question number 23. Consider the following statements regarding the newly launched PM Swanidhi scheme. Number 1. It aims to facilitate working capital loan up to rupees 100,000 at subsidized rate of interest to street vendors for resuming their livelihoods activities after easing of lockdown. Number 2, both the street vendors in urban and rural areas are covered. Number 3, those who are repaying the loan on time and earlier or earlier. Okay, so those who are repaying the loan on time or earlier are eligible for an incentive. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? So the answer is B. The answer is okay. So the answer is B. That is 2. That is 2 and 3. So it is both the street vendors in urban and rural areas are covered, and number 3, those who are repaying the loan on time or earlier are eligible for an incentive. So PM Street Vendors Atmanirbhar Nidhi, PM Swanidhi, is a special microcredit facility for street vendors launched recently by Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. It is a central sector scheme to facilitate street vendors to access affordable working capital loan for resuming their livelihood activities after easing of lockdown. So the objectives of the scheme is to facilitate working capital loan up to rupees 10,000 at a subsidized rate of interest. Hence statement 1 is not correct. And the second objective is to incentivize regular repayment of the loan. And the third objective is to reward digital transactions. So what are the salient features of the scheme? Number 1 is that interest subsidy on timely or early repayment at the rate 7%. Hence statement 3 is correct. The second feature is monthly cashback incentive or digital transactions. The third incentive is higher loan eligibility on timely repayment of the first loan. The fourth feature is it covers street vendors or hawkers vending in urban areas as on or before March 24, 2020, including the vendors of surrounding peri-urban and rural areas. Hence statement 2 is correct. The fifth feature would be lending institutions that will provide credit under it. Scheduled commercial banks, regional rural banks, small finance banks, cooperative banks, non-banking financial companies, microfinance institutions, and self-help group banks. Then the sixth point is the scheme shall be implemented up to March 2022. The next feature is KYC documents required, either of them, that is Aadhaar card, voter's identity card, driving license, and Manrega card, then PAN card, etc. Then the next point is no collateral security is required to avail this loan. And the next feature is if a loanee name is in the list of surveyed vendors but he does not have either identity card or certificate of vending, then also he can avail this scheme. A provisional certificate of vending would be issued to vendors through an IT-based platform. The banking correspondent or agent will help in filling up the application and upload the documents in a mobile app or portal. Now let's come to the next question, that is question number 24. Consider the following peers. We have work on the one side and the another one is their author. So number 1, it is Mudra Rakshasa. So the author is Kalidasa. Number 2, it would be Brihat Samhita and the author is Varaha Mihira. Then the third one is Panchatantra and the author is Vishnu Sharma. Which of the pairs given above is or are correctly matched? So the correct answer is B, that is 2 and 3. So the machinations of Chanakya against Chandragupta's enemies are described in details in the Mudra Rakshasa, a play written by Vishakha Datta in the 9th century. So the first pair is wrong. In modern times, several plays have been based on it. So Mudra Rakshasa is written by Vishakha Datta. Then Varaha Mihira's well-known work is called the Brihat Samhita. So the second pair is correct. And this Brihat Samhita, which belongs to the 6th century AD. Varaha Mihira stated that the moon rotates around the earth and the earth rotates around the sun. He utilized several Greek works to explain the movement of the planets and some other astronomical problems. Although the Greek knowledge influenced Indian astronomy, the Indians doubtless pursued the subject further and made use of it in their observations of the planets. Next is Panchatantra. It is perhaps the oldest collection of Indian fables still surviving. It is written around 200 BC by the great Hindu scholar Pandit Vishnu Sharma. So it's the correct answer. Number 3 is correct. Panchatantra means the 5 books. It is a Niti Shastra. So it is Niti Shastra. So Panchatantra means 5 books and it is a Niti Shastra, which means a book of wise conduct in life. The book is written in the form of simple stories and each story has a moral and philosophical theme which has stood the test of time in the modern age of atomic fear and madness. It guides us to attain success in life by understanding human nature. Now let's come to the next topic, next question, that is question number 25. Which of the following statements is correct regarding the difference between background extinction and mass extinction? Number 1. Mass extinctions are caused by human interventions only, while background extinctions are natural. Number 2. Mass extinctions have a greater impact on the ecosystem than background extinction. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is B, that is 2 only. So 2 only. Mass extinctions have a greater impact on the ecosystem than background extinction. So extinction of an organism means that it no longer exists anywhere on the planet. There are 2 different types of extinction. The first one is background extinction and the second is mass extinction. So first let's come to background extinction. So it refers to the normal extinction rate. These are species that go extinct simply because not all life can be sustained on Earth and some species simply cannot survive. So this is called background extinction. Number 2 is mass extinction. It is a widespread event that wipes out the majority, over 50% of living plants and animals. Mass extinction leads to permanent loss of a major group of organisms. Mass extinction accounts for all the extinct species on Earth. Mass extinctions can be caused by both natural and human interventions, while background extinction are generally natural. Hence, statement 1 is not correct. Mass extinction has a greater impact on the ecosystem than background extinction. Hence, statement 2 is correct. Earth has experienced several mass extinctions. The most devastating, perhaps, was the Permian mass extinction 225 million years ago. About 90% of the species living at the time went extinct, including most of the dominant land vertebrates at the time. Extinctions occur continually, generating a turnover of the species living on Earth. This normal process is called background extinction. Sometimes, however, extinction rates rise suddenly for a relatively short time, an event known as a mass extinction. Mass extinctions kill off many species, but the empty niches left behind may allow other lineages to radiate into new roles, shaping the diversification of life on Earth. So that's all, guys. See you in my next video. Bye.